Hello everyone, welcome to this tutorial. In this tutorial, I'll be teaching you how to simply turn off all your GUI in a game with a simple click of a button. Now, without further ado, let's get started. The first step that we're going to do is going into our starter GUI over here and inserting a new script. I'm going to rename this script to disable GUI, just like that, and press enter. Now, before we actually start typing anything in this script, what we're going to do is we're going to go back over to here, or actually don't have to. Well, actually, yeah, you should. And we're going to do GUI and input or insert a screen GUI, which we can call this screen GUI something along the lines of disable GUI button. Let's call it that. Disable GUI, or I'm just going to do it one string GUI button, just like that. And in here, we're going to add in an image button. Now, you could do a text button, but I'm going to use an image button because it looks better. And why am I unable to click this? I actually have no idea here. Problem fixed. Just drag this thing out of your script, because if it's inside a script, you can't move it around. But when it's outside the script, you can move it around. Alright, so I'm going to put this down in the bottom here. And I actually already have a GUI asset, which I'll leave in the description below. I'm going to paste that in, and just like that, I have this nice little hide button, which I'm going to scale down a bit. Can I widen it? No, widening it doesn't look good. I think that looks good enough. And then the background transparency, I'm just going to set it to 1. So there we go. Now I have this icon right here in the bottom corner as a sort of button to like hide GUI. Alright. And then inside of here, we're also going to add in one more script. And this is going to be our UI UI manager. And there we go. Now we have our quick UI manager script, which I don't like how it looks, so I'm going to do that. Alright, now that we're done doing that, let's get into actually scripting our disable GUI. So let's open up the script, and in the script, we're going to let's get our user input service. So local UIS is going to be equal to game get service, and we're going to get our user input service. Now essentially what we're doing is we're getting a service which detects anytime we press a key. So our next one's going to be local player GUI, because the player GUI is actually different from the different from the starter GUI, which we have, or which we see in Roblox Studio. So anyways, we're going to get the player GUI so that this will only affect the player, or it'll actually affect the player since GUI is handled locally. Anyways, next we're going to create an if statement. So if UIS dot touch, not touch ended, but touch enabled is equal to true. I cannot spell true. Then we can simply press enter and it'll do that. We'll just do a quick thing. Print user is on mobile. And I just realized I did this very wrong, but it'll still work. As you've probably heard, if it works, don't touch it. So this will work. Anyways, else, so basically it's saying that if it's not on mobile, then we'll do this other one, which is going to be user is not on mobile. So we're basically just confirming in the output so we can test it out on different platforms to make sure it works. But the reason why I did this wrong is that it should be touch enabled false, because technically I'm pretty sure we're supposed to put the script in first, but I don't think it matters, because this one's actually going to do something. So script dot disable, or not disabled, but disabled GUI button dot enabled is going to be equal to false. Now what this is going to do is that if the user is not on mobile, we're going to basically disable this, so this won't work anymore, and anything inside of this, like the script, won't actually fire. Which, if you don't want that to happen, just remove all this, and that button will still be there the whole time. Alright, but now we're going to test out when a key on your computer is actually pressed. So UIS dot an input began, so that means some button has been pressed, connect. We're going to create a little function here. We're going to get our input. As you can see, we can get like input, object, and game process event. So there's like a boolean. Basically, there's a nice little thing to help tell you what happened, even though it's kind of like obscure. Input And then our next one's going to be a game processed. Basically putting in two variables because it will output two variables when it's pressed. Alright. And now if input dot keycode is going to be equal to enum dot keycode dot k, or whatever letter you want. I'm gonna use a tilde actually, which we can do. How do you spell that? Okay, yeah. So dot keycode tilde. Or, so what this is doing is, I'll explain this before I keep going. But basically, if the input key code, so if the key pressed is equal to the tilde key or D, which I wouldn't do. Actually, I'll do F. F's pretty nice. It's equal to F. Then we basically will fire a thing, which will tell us to turn everything off. But we also have to include console players. So we're going to do another one, which is going to see if keycode, if input.keycode is equal to enum.keycode.dpad. Oh, dpad, let's do right. And game, well, I spelled processed very wrong. There we go, processed. Whoops, sorry for that. Game processed is equal to false. Now, what game is equal to false? And then we can just press enter and it'll automatically complete it for us. Alright, so essentially what this is doing is it's asking the game if the key code is equal to F, or if it's the D-pad key, then and, so basically if it's either this or this, and. So we're basically asking for this function or this function, but this function has to be paired with this function or this, or actually I'm missing function. If this has to be paired with this, and this has to be paired with this. So this will always have to be false no matter what. Now what game process is that when you're typing in like chat or something, and you press the K key, that means that it's been processed by the game, and we don't want it when you're typing something. But if you want it when you're typing something, you press true, which would be very annoying, so obviously false. Anyways, I'm going to make this a bit smaller so you can see the whole code. There we go. Then I'm going to go down here for I, comma, let's do GUI in pairs. And then we're going to get our player GUI, and we're going to get all the player GUI colon get descendants. So we're getting everything. So how this works is essentially if you were to call star GUI, everything inside of star GUI would have this loop called onto it. So whatever we say inside of here will happen to everything inside for all the descendants of this. So each one of these. Alright. And then we can simply press enter and it'll finish it for us. And then we're going to check if the GUI, which is for every GUI, which we're assuming is a GUI, or we could also do object, but I'm going to do GUI. And then we're going to check if the GUI is a screen GUI, because we don't want to accidentally disable this, because then there'll be no way to re-enable it. Or if you have something else like a folder in here, it's just going to break this code because you can't disable a folder. Or actually, can you? I don't think you can, but it'll probably, or like dialog, if you have something like this, you don't just randomly disable something that you don't want to be disabled, right? So now is a screen GUI, and let's say you want something on the screen that just never gets disabled. Then we'll do and GUI colon get attributes, and then we're going to create a special attribute called special later on in the video. And what this attribute is going to do is if we add it to a certain thing, like right down here, we can do attribute, and let's do string, or yeah, no, it's going to be a boolean because it's true. So name special, make sure it has to be spelled exactly the same. Right, so special, okay, hopefully I spelled special wrong. We're going to add that, and then if it's true, then it will skip it. But what we want to do is we want to make sure special is not equal to true. Because if we just say it's false, then it's going to assume that everything has it. But if it's not equal to true, it doesn't have it, so it's essentially automatically false. Alright, so then what we can do is GUI dot enabled is equal to not GUI dot enabled. So essentially, if the GUI is enabled, then it'll be disabled, and if the GUI is already disabled, then it's going to be enabled. Basically, the opposite is going to happen to what it already is. Alright, now we're going to get on to coding the second part of this GUI. Alright, let's start coding the part of the script which will help our mobile friends disable UI, which is probably more beneficial for them than it is for computer users because they kind of have less visual area to play with. Alright, so before we code anything in here, let's actually add in a bindable event, and we'll rename this event over here to be button pressed. Alright, and now that we have our button pressed event, what we're going to make it do is we're going to make it be able to communicate between this script and this script, so that we know when this button over here will be pressed. Alright, so let's open up this script over here, and inside the script we'll do script.parent. Mouse button one click, connect function, and we're going to create a function. We're going to end it off like that without any variables, or and we're going to do script.parent what's that say, button pressed, button pressed, and then we're going to fire this event. Alright, and believe it or not, this is all the coding that we're going to do in this. So we can now close that, and we can start coding in here. And in here, the first bit of code that I'm actually going to do is create a script that will detect when this event is fired. So script dot button pressed dot event, and then we're going to connect function, and we're not sending any information through it, so we won't have to put anything inside of this. Parentheses or brackets, brackets, that's what they're called. And now we can immediately go straight to this loop. So actually, we can just straight up copy and paste this over here to save some time, and because everything's the same except for one part that isn't the same, and that's right here. We're going to add in another requirement. So and we're going to make sure that the GUI dot name is not equal to, I cannot spell this, not equal to touch GUI. Now the reason we want to do this is because in testing, when I went onto like a mobile version of Studio, what basically happens is that it disables your mobile controls, so you can't actually move your character if you press the disable button, which is something that I do not want to happen to mobile users. That's not very good. Alright, but essentially we have finished this script. Close out this and do all our bug fixes necessary, because I'm a human and I make mistakes. So let's play it, and our user is not on mobile. So what key do we do? F. Just like that, it turns everything off. And our little icon over here is not getting turned off. Now the reason we are seeing this being turned on is because I forgot to add a special event to this, like I did. So I'm going to stop this. So inside of here, we'll add our attribute. Alright, this time I made sure to set this to a boolean, just like that. Save it, and we'll enable it. As you'll see, we can press our F key, that doesn't turn on, and this Game Pass UI will stay. So we can quickly press F to disable this. Now that we know that our code on PC works, let's go down on this menu and switch it to a tablet or phone, whichever you want. And I'm going to do this one, and just like this, our scaling made it to it, and we can press play here to test it out how it works. Now we can move, and we can press this disable button, which we still have our GUI over here, and we can key press this button to disable it. So hopefully you enjoyed watching this tutorial. I hope to make more. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in another video. Goodbye.